things you've started doing since moving to the Czech Republic. You've not only talked to yourself, but now you talk to yourself on camera. Hello friends, welcome back. Today I would like to talk to you about some things that I didn't do until I moved to Czech Republic. Now, this might be a bit difficult because I've been here for what feels like forever, so it's kind of hard to remember the things that I didn't do before I came here. Some of them are very obvious, but some of them I really had to think like, yeah, I don't remember doing this before I have moved here. So, let's just start. So the first thing that I didn't do until I moved to the Czech Republic was drink beer. Like, I lived in the US and I would go out with my friends and I would have other kind of drinks, you know. What was my drink when I used to go out in the US? Like vodka pineapple juice. It was delicious. Then I moved to Czech Republic and I thought, okay, like beer is cheap, I might as well just drink it. So for like 4 years, I just went around pretending that I liked beer, when in all honesty, like I hated it. But I was only drinking it because it was cheap. Now I know all of you are gonna come at me and be like, what the heck, you live in Czech Republic, we're the beer capital of the world. How can you live here and not like beer? You did a beer review, for crying out loud. How can you do a beer review if you don't like beer? I'm sorry, I just don't. I also didn't drink Coke until I moved to Czech Republic. Actually, I didn't drink like any of these like pop, soda, soft drink kind of things at all growing up in the US. Surprising, I know. But then one day I was hiking and I got to the top of the mountain. I wasn't in the mood for beer, so I said, I am craving Coca-Cola. This has never happened to me before in my life. I'm craving Coca-Cola, I'm gonna get one. And so that day up on the top of Radhošť and Puštevny, I had my first ever Coca-Cola. So now when I go out to a restaurant, instead of getting beer, although it's the cheapest, but as I said, from like 2018, I've just decided that, no, I'm done pretending to like beer. Instead of getting beer, I'll have Coca-Cola because it tends to be a bit cheaper than water sometimes, which doesn't make any sense to me. Something I didn't do until I moved to Czech Republic, and it wasn't even something that I was aware that I was doing, is taking my shoes off when I come into a house. So here in Czech Republic, at least most Czech households I've been to, when you come in the house, you take your shoes off and then you go do the rest of your house things. Some places they give you slippers, sometimes you have your own like home slippers, and sometimes you don't. But this is something that I didn't realize that I did until I was back in the US and I came in my house and the first thing I did was take my shoes off. But my parents didn't. Like, this is a thing I do now. I was also in Italy over Christmas and I went with my boyfriend to his friend's house and we had like a dinner, and the first thing I did there was take my shoes off. Then I looked around and realized that everyone else was wearing shoes, but I wasn't gonna put mine back on because they were already off. Later in the evening, I discovered everyone else had their shoes off too, so like I was a trendsetter. It just doesn't make any sense to me, like to leave your shoes on when you're in the house. I get it if you're gonna come home for a second and get something and then go right back out, but like when you're home, why would you wear your shoes? It just doesn't make any sense. Prior to moving to the Czech Republic, I lived in Ohio. My whole life I grew up there. And it's kind of a thing in the Midwest where people don't wear jackets or coats or anything, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it does get cold there. People tend to do this because they go from their house to the car, from the car to the store, from the store to the car, from the car back to their house. Minimal outside exposure. They also try to find the closest parking spot to wherever they're going so they don't have to walk very far. People will sometimes wear like a big hoodie or like a zip North Face or Columbia jacket, something like that. But it's funny because I go back there and I'm like, why is no one wearing a jacket? So something I have realized that I just kind of did without really knowing it is that now that I live here in the Czech Republic, I will wear a scarf, I'll wear my jacket like fully zipped up to my neck, and I'll wear a hat and sometimes gloves, the whole shebang. This is something that I didn't used to do in the US because I'm like, I go from my car to my store, to the store, to my car, to my house. Like, it just wasn't a thing. While living in the Czech Republic, sometimes my job is to teach English. It's not my favorite thing. I prefer teaching math, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And as a native English speaker, sometimes you get roped into teaching English class at schools because, well, you know it. But the thing about teaching English here is that the textbooks are teaching the students British English. In my opinion, British English and American English should be two separate languages because while they're similar, there's also so many differences. Since I'm teaching English sometimes, it's from the British textbooks, I've started picking up these British words. So occasionally I'll use the word lorry. No, actually you don't use that ever. Or trolley. No, actually you don't use that one ever either. Okay, but I do say things like quite or clever, or I'll use the word cinema instead of movie theater, or supermarket instead of grocery store, or flat instead of apartment, which doesn't make any sense in my opinion because they're not always flat. Like what the heck is a block of flats? It's not flat at all. I don't really notice that I'm saying these things even with other Americans that are around me because they've also kind of picked up this habit of using these more British expressions, I guess, until I'm talking with like my parents and I'll be like, oh yeah, mom, that's like a clever idea, and she'll be like, yeah, that's a clever idea. Since when do you say that? It's kind of funny how language just kind of rubs off on people. I mean, being in Ostrava, I also picked up like different language things. No, it's not what you're thinking. But in Prague, they say like ty vole. And in Ostrava, they say something worse. But because I worked at the school, they have like the kids version, I guess. And people would say ty brďo. So now when something crazy happens, this is my expression like, ugh, ty brďo. Like, I can't believe it, you know? And so that just kind of makes me laugh a little bit because it's not like the Prague one and it's not like the Ostrava one, it's kind of the kids version. But speaking of supermarkets, I mean grocery stores, this is a place I go more frequently. I mean, in the US you have a car, you go to the grocery store, get your stuff for like a whole week. Maybe you can do that here as well, but I don't. I'll go to the grocery store like 3 or 4 times a week and just get a couple things and bring them home, make them throughout the week. But then, like, I don't buy as much stuff because I have to carry it all home. Part of this carrying it all home, and something that I didn't used to do until I moved here, was taking my own shopping bag to the store with me. Like, I have a small IKEA bag that's like the best bag ever because it folds up into a little pocket inside of itself, and I can just put it in my like purse or backpack or whatever to just take it with me. Yes, you can buy plastic bags or paper bags if you forget, but like, hello, why would you pay money for that when you could just bring your own? And also, let's save the planet. Even when I go back to the US, I'll take this little bag to the grocery store because, oh my gosh, I hate grocery shopping in the US. It makes me crazy. That's a story for another time and another video. Now, when I go to the store, doctor's office, Potravini, little shops, restaurants, things like this, I'll walk in and say, Dobrý den, because that's what people do. Maybe not so much like in the center of Prague, but in other parts of Czech Republic, they definitely do that. For those that don't know, it's basically just like saying hello politely. To who? I don't know. Sometimes it makes sense, like when you walk into a restaurant, but it doesn't make any sense when you walk into the waiting room at the doctor's office. Like, who are you saying hello to? Like, you don't know these people. I guess it's just a thing though. Then when you leave, you say, "Na shledanou." Even if you were there for just 10 seconds, just looking at nothing because the Potravini didn't have what you wanted. It's just what you do. You go into the shop, post office, doctor's office, say hello. Then when you leave, you say goodbye. This is not something I did before. And this is definitely a habit I picked up in Ostrava. Before I moved to the Czech Republic, I never used Bolt or Uber or Lyft or any of that kind of thing. First of all, because I lived like in the freaking middle of nowhere and no one was gonna drive out to the middle of nowhere to take me home. That's crazy. I would always drive myself. I had a car. Then I lived in Ostrava and they don't have like Uber and stuff like that out there. When I went back to the US, I was there for, I don't know, a couple months. Then kind of heard about this crazy shooting with some Uber driver in, what was it, like Kalamazoo, Michigan or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking crazy. So I never use any of these like driving services in the US because I'm like, oh my God, they're crazy. Then I started working for the travel company. I had to go to the airport like once a month. Yes, I know, public transportation is great to go to the airport. It's smooth, easy, and efficient, no problems at all. Sometimes my flight was leaving like early in the morning and I didn't want to wake up so early and like all of these things. So I started using, what was it, Taxify back then? It's now Bolt. But oh my gosh, I still hate using these things. I'm so paranoid because I always think something bad's gonna happen. Not so much that like I'm gonna get kidnapped or something by one of these drivers, but oh my goodness, people drive like psychos. Some of these drivers shouldn't have a license. Yes, I've seen some of your comments on the US versus Czech Republic driver's license video, and people probably do actually just pay to get their driver's license without doing any of the courses. It's insane. Before I moved to Czech Republic, I'd never been on a train. Not surprising because like I grew up in the US, my parents had a car, I had a car. Anywhere we needed to go, I would just drive there. It was easier. They also don't really have nice train infrastructure in the US, so it was kind of impossible. I'd also never been on a tram, for obvious reasons. But now that I live here in Czech Republic, I use public transportation for everything. It's not always like clean or pleasant because, you know, people are touching things and sneezing, and in the summer everyone seems to forget to wear deodorant. But honestly, like I find public transportation to be just so convenient. Like I can't be bothered to buy a car, can't be bothered to deal with people driving in Prague and in Europe in general. I also just realized that I can't be bothered is one of those like British expressions that I've picked up, so add that to the list. Finally, one of my favorite things that I've started doing since moving to the Czech Republic is going to farmers markets. Crazy that I grew up surrounded by farms, yet there were no farmers markets anywhere. Now, farmers market season is coming up. I hear that some of them have started to open already or are gonna start opening here in the beginning of March. So I'm excited, looking forward to those things because I like to buy local stuff, you know? And because honestly, sometimes the produce at like Bilo just doesn't cut it, like seriously. I'll buy into that conspiracy that the Czech Republic is Germany's dumpster and they bring all the food from Germany that's not good enough to be sold there, so they give it to us. I don't know if that's actually true or if it's just a conspiracy theory, but like I said, I'll buy into it. Alright, so these have been like just some of the things that I've started doing or have picked up since living in the Czech Republic. Things that I didn't even realize I was doing until I really like sat down and thought about it, or until I encounter someone from like my old life where I grew up and they're like, oh, you do this now? That's weird. Some of you watching this may be like, yeah, these are completely normal things. Like I've done them my whole life. Why do they seem so strange to you? It's not that they're strange. They're just things that I didn't do before I lived here. Feel free to leave a comment in the box below if you've recently moved to a new country and now you've picked up some new habits or some things that you have stopped doing, maybe if you've moved to a new country. We can talk about those things in another video. Subscribe if you want to see more nonsense, and until next time, goodbye.